Now, Democratic candidate for governor, joins me now. Mr. Burke, thanks for coming on the show.
It's great to be with you, Chuck.
Let me start with the fact that I find it fascinating. Half the state still doesn't know who you are, and this race is deadlocked. If that doesn't scream polarization in the state of Wisconsin, I don't know what number does.
Well, there's no doubt that's the way it looks, but I don't believe that's the way it has to be, and that's why I'm running for governor, because I believe the people of Wisconsin want leadership that actually brings people together. And my approach as a business executive is to focus on problem solving. I don't care whether ideas are Democratic or Republican ideas. Let's go with ideas that are going to work and then bring people together to do our best work. That's the way I'm going to lead Wisconsin.
Did you support the recall?
Yes, I did. I think
Why?
that people should have a voice and be able to tell the governor and vote as to whether he should be or she should be able to continue in their job. So I do. It's a process that it should be open to voters in Wisconsin.
And you're not concerned that because of the ease with which this happened the first time that we're not going to see a succession of Wisconsin governors see recall efforts midway through their term? It's a pretty disruptive process, is it not?
No doubt that it was divisive, but that's the result when Governor Walker eliminated collective bargaining and really made it an issue, very divisive. And I would have negotiated firmly but fairly for the changes that were needed, but it didn't have to come to what it did. And so what we need to do now is move forward, look at the challenges that Wisconsin faces. And under Scott Walker, we are dead last in the Midwest in terms of job creation. So we need to move forward, but do it in a way that looks at problem solving and brings people together.
You used an interesting phrase just now. You said changes that were needed. So how much of what Scott Walker did when it comes to changing the way negotiations, the collective bargaining agreements that he wanted to change, the way collective bargaining was done in Wisconsin, were you in favor of?
Well, I think that contributions to health care and pensions are only fair, but I am concerned that we will be able to attract and keep the workforce that is necessary. As an executive at Trek Bicycle, I know that an organization is only as good as the people that it has, and I am concerned whether we are going to be able to keep good people. And just a few weeks ago, I talked to a gentleman in Neenah, Wisconsin, and he told me about his daughter. She was graduating from UW-Eau Claire with a degree in education, and she had a job offer with a district in Minnesota and one in her hometown in Neenah. Well, guess which one she took? She's headed off to Minnesota because she doesn't see her future as an educator, as a teacher here in Wisconsin. I want to make sure as governor that we are preparing our young people to compete for the jobs of the future and that we have the opportunities here in Wisconsin for them to stay.
I want to go back to this polarized climate in Wisconsin because it is amazingly divided in that state. I've gone into it and you see, and there are people that are still sort of carrying the banner on the recall. Either they love Walker or they hate Walker. In some ways you're benefiting this, but in some ways, if you're governor, you may be beaten up for this. So I guess what I would ask is, how do you, I know you said, well, it doesn't matter if ideas, but how do you symbolically break through this? What's going to be so different about you being governor that's somehow going to depolarize the state of Wisconsin?
Well, it is certainly going to take time, but I know that we can do it. And the last time that Herb Kohl ran for Senate in 2006, he got nearly 2/3 of the vote. So I think that's a reflection of who we are here in Wisconsin. I was at an event a few weeks ago, and I had spoken, and I was speaking to a gentleman afterwards, and he said to me, he shared with me, he said, you know, I'm here because my wife dragged me here, and she told me to keep my mouth shut because I'm a Republican. He said, but after hearing you speak, you turned me, and I'm voting for you. So it is about common sense. It's about moving the state forward, putting people ahead of the politics and the special interests, and doing what's good for the state. That's the type of leadership people in Wisconsin want to see, and that's the type of leadership I bring to this. Whether it's been in the business world, nonprofit, or in education, that's the experience that I have.
Now, you talked about the concern about jobs leaving the state of Wisconsin. Obviously, Scott Walker's hitting you for your family's company that manufactures a lot of bikes, most of them overseas, very few of them in the state of Wisconsin, let alone in the United States. This is the story of every company in America these days that manufactures, that they've moved manufacturing in the United States. So trying to call for more jobs in the state, don't you have to practice what you preach? Shouldn't your family's company be practicing what it preaches?
Well, I'm really proud of Trek's record in Wisconsin and the role that I have played in Trek's success. This was a firm that was founded in Wisconsin by my father nearly 40 years ago in a barn in Waterloo, Wisconsin. And today, Trek employs nearly 1,000 people right here in Wisconsin. They have been committed to Wisconsin. They have been committed to the communities that they are located in, and certainly to the nearly 1,000 employees that work there and their families. And for Scott Walker to drag a great Wisconsin homegrown company through the mud for his political ambitions and purposes shows a certain sign of desperation. I'm going to make sure that as governor, I'm working with companies to understand the challenges that they face, make sure we have a great business climate, and that we are able to get enough jobs, as many jobs as we possibly can back here in Wisconsin.
Well, what would it take to get Trek to move more of its jobs from overseas into Wisconsin? What is it that's missing in the Wisconsin business climate?
Well, every industry is different, and unfortunately, Trek is in an industry that is dominated by companies that source all of their bikes elsewhere. Trek manufactures more bikes in Wisconsin and in the U.S. than any other company, and that none of its major competitors produce even one bicycle here in the United States. And so it is about the supply chain. It's about the competition. Some industries, it's viable to reshore, and I will work with those industries and those companies to do it. But in other instances, it may not be as viable. But Trek produces more bikes here in Wisconsin than any other company in the United States, and in the last 20 years they have more than doubled their payroll. So the jobs that we are looking at may be different than the jobs in the past. I want to make sure that I am working with our education system and our employers to make sure that we have the workforce that is trained to compete for the jobs of the future.
Some Democrats are concerned that they thought you were going to spend more of your own personal money in this race, and you have not put, you've put some money in this race of your own. There are some Democrats that are hoping you would put more in. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm really proud of our fundraising record, and in the last 6 months, I raised more money than any other previous candidate had raised on the Republican or the Democratic side. So I have found widespread support throughout the state. I have put in some of my own resources, and I have said from the start, I will put in what I can, but it's a fraction of what will be needed. And with Scott Walker raising more than 50% of his money from outside of the state of Wisconsin, I need to make sure that I can get my message out.
All right, Mary Burke, Democratic candidate for governor in Wisconsin. It's going to be a doozy of a battle up there in Wisconsin. And as I say to all my Wisconsin guests, go Packers, because I am a Packer fan. Anyway, Mary Burke, thanks for coming on the show. Stay safe on the trail.